All right. Good afternoon, everyone. Today I'm going to be talking about strategic strategic human resource management. So the first article, and the title is "Still in Search of Strategic Human Resource Management: A Review and Suggestion for Future Research with China as an Example." So first of all is the introduction. As we know, strategic human resource management has been an important strand of research in the HRM field for over 3 decades and has attracted heated debates in recent years. One main critique of the state of SHRM research is its increasing detachment from HRM practice in the pursuit of more theoretical rigor and methodological sophistication. The aim of reviewing HRM in the Chinese context is twofold. First, to suggest that strategic HRM research being conducted in China needs to pay more attention to contextual factors instead of simply adopting as existing approaches that have evolved in other cultures. And second, to provide suggestions to illustrate how future strategic HRM research can engage in country-specific contexts more fully to identify what HRM issues are challenging firms and their responding HRM strategy, policy, and practice. So the major critics about the research direction of strategic HRM. So strategic HRM has been criticized for being too preoccupied with firms' financial performance, as its definitions indicate. The review study illustrates that some of the problems identified, especially in the Chinese context, where research capacity of HRM is emerging rapidly, but the tendency of physiologization and decontextualization appears to be more and more endemic in the absence of a strong pluralistic and interdisciplinary tradition and in the relentless pursuit of fast research outputs. Next is the methodology of data collection and analysis. So of this article, data collection for this review consists of two parts of literature searching, reflecting the foci of our study as indicated in this introduction. So the first, we search for articles published in two leading HRM journals measured by the Academic Journal Guides 2018 by Chartered ABS, which HRM and HRMJ both rank as 4. HRM celebrates its 60th anniversary in 2021, whereas HRMJ celebrated its 30th anniversary in 2020. A second part of the data collection involves searching for studies of SHRM is in the Chinese context, including at SHRM in China and Chinese MNCs abroad. Next is the strategic HRM research in HRM and HRMJ. So what has been published and what may be the gaps? Studies in both HRM and HRMJ make efforts to explore consequences of strategic HRM. Studies in HRMJ focus more on the mechanism that influence the individual level, whereas studies in HRM pay more attention to those that influence the organizational level, reflecting in part a comparatively more sophisticated research design than those in HRMJ. Relatedly, while employees-related outcomes and organizational outcomes, which many of which are HR-related, features quite prominently in studies in HRM. Studies in HRMJ focus more on employee-related outcomes and less on organizational outcomes. So next, the studies of strategic HRM in the Chinese context. The first English article on strategic HRM in China seemed to appear in 1999, but it was not until 2008 that the number of publications rose relatively substantially. In particular, the number of publications has been increasing rapidly since 2016. Nearly 800 of the empirical studies adopt a quantitative method for data collection. For the quantitative studies, only a small proportion are contextualized in the institutional setting, or include institutional actors and industrial or employment relations as an element of the research. Even though employment or labor market conditions in China vary significantly across industrial sectors and differ between China and other economies, which may influence the effect of strategic HR practices. Strategic HRM research in the Chinese context and indeed other social contexts may mobilize sub-Brahmanist theoretical approaches to explore the rationales of why organizations adopt some HRM practices and reject others. There are four approach. First one is the economic approach. For example, organizations adopting HRM practices that are economically beneficial to them. Second one is the alignment approach, that firms adopting HRM practice, like if these practices are aligned with the strategic objectives. And the third one is the decision-making approach, where a constrained rationality models of managerial judgment. And the last is the diffusion approach, where attributing the adoption or rejection decision to institutional pressures that encourage imitation. These theoretical approaches help understand the motivation and capacity of organizations in adopting certain HRM practices, as well as the process and impact of such undertakings. Firms' position in the value chain, business sector, and business strategy are important factors to be considered in the investigation of these issues, especially in view of the fact that there remain insufficient studies that explore strategic HRM with a supply chain orientation, or examine business strategy and strategic HRM together. So for the discussion, what can be done to advance strategic HRM research with practical relevance? So that context is important as an strategic HRM research backdrop as well as part of the research design itself. So the intention is to encourage new researchers in China and other developing countries that are building their HRM research capacity to be more confident in investigating HRM issues from their own angle, to uncover stories and develop conceptual insights. Strategic HRM researchers have have the opportunities to contribute to the responsible research agenda by connecting strategic HRM research with broad social issues. Research can be conducted to examine the various types of strategic reward by a subsystem adopted where they exist across various industrial, organizational, and workforce settings in China, to assess their formation, content, and process of implementation and effects, which perceive and real on sustainable organizational performance, including employee well-being. So for the summary, contribution, and limitation, this study provides an assessment of the development in strategic HRM research through the analysis of over 300 articles, including non-sample articles in HRMR and other journals. The intention is twofold. First one is to highlight gaps and problems in extant research through a systematic review of studies published in two leading HRM journal, which HRM and HRMJ as a backdrop. And the second one is to suggest a way to overcome some of them, using China as a case country for the review for research capacity building purpose. So this article encouraged HRM researchers to adopt a more strategic mindset in identifying a broader range of strategic HRM issues in a variety of settings and linking them to other organizational phenomena and outcomes to extend the current theoretical and methodological paradigms. This means bringing in scholars from other disciplines and national backgrounds through collaborative research to take the field forward with academic rigor as well as practical relevance. And this acknowledge that our and our article contains limitation. For example, this article review has focused mainly on strategic HRM study in HRM and HRMJ, as well as strategic HRM in the Chinese context. However, the main objective of this research review is not to provide a comprehensive systematic review of strategic HRM research and theoretical advancement. Some review already exists on this. So this is the second article that I found. The title is Strategic HRM Practices and Their Impact on Company Performance in Chinese Enterprises. So this study examined the factorial validity of strategic human resource management practices and their effects on company performance in sample of 465 Chinese enterprises. So the literature review and research question of these articles, there are three. First one is, how valid is the use of strategic HRM practices in Chinese enterprises? The second one, have these practices have been adapted when applied in the Chinese context? And the third one, do these practices matter in terms of their influence on company performance? The method used of this article, the sample is to investigate strategic HRM practices and their impact on firm performance in Chinese firms. A large-scale questionnaire survey was conducted in three major cities. First is Guangzhou, Shanghai, and Nanjing. And then the researchers mailed 600 questionnaires to these enterprises with the promise that their individual responses would remain confidential. They received 465 usable questionnaires, a response rate of 78%. Data were collected through two questionnaire surveys among general managers and HRM directors on product service performance of their companies and a range of strategic HRM practices. So the finding of this article that indicates that a valid set of strategic HRM practice, including training, participation, result-oriented appraisals, and internal career opportunities affect both product service performance and financial performance. Employment security and jobs description contribute uniquely to product service performance, whereas profit sharing contributes uniquely to financial performance. So the conclusion of their findings support recent assertions by researchers that strategic HRM practice not only are widespread, but also are valued by Chinese organizations. The Chinese economy seems to have gained momentum to nurture and develop human capital with the purpose of becoming a knowledge economy. So that's all for my presentation. Thank you all for your attention.